In this audit, I'll be using the WCAG checklist as well as the stark contrast and accessibility checker. So we'll start with the checklist. We'll start with the color and transparency. We emphasize on accessibility, trust, and brand perception, and visual hierarchy and clarity. Thus, this is very crucial. So I have some designs that should be legible, and I want to have key information which must be read without interference from transparent parts. If you have a model which has a hazy background, the transparency must be balanced to maintain readability. So looking at minimum contrast, we're looking at using a tool to check contrast ratio, to check UI elements, which is the contrast tool right here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. Pop-up page for item details, maybe. Let's check for the button. That's at the very bottom. So I've got this button and the pop-up details page. And as you can see, we are not hitting the mark for neither the AA or AAA. So let's go ahead and fix that on the component section. So I'm at the component section now, and I'm going to go ahead and fix this button, which is not hitting the mark for the contrast. So we got the result of 75, 75, 75 for the button color. That is the background. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that one. I want to copy that, go over here and paste that. So now this button is more accessible. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to typography. So just like readability, it helps users read and understand the app. And when I say that, I mean those who get frustrated will leave the app. I've certainly done that myself. I'm going to go ahead and set this text to 100%. I mean the screen size, so I can see the text better at 100%. And I'm going to go ahead and explore some text around to see if we need any adjustments. So I am starting at the home page, and at the moment I am seeing very little text on the home page. Same with the product listing. We do have some pages with more text. Let me go to use the typography tool here. Good so far. Good so far. Let me check this one. 12. So right here we found a text box that has type size 10. I'm going to go ahead and fix that. So as we can see, we have bold size 10. Let's make that 12. Center that with this right there. So now it is centered, and we have text that is more accessible. So I think this helps to the users to prioritize what's first and secondary in terms of typography. Looking at 100%, I didn't notice much in issues. One of the few, this was one of the few that needed adjustments. So again, I think this helps prioritize users on deciding the app should guide consumers, not confuse them. Most of the text is good as I see. So looking back at the checklist, we looked at typography, style. I think I would work on the style guide. If we look at the style guides, I do have some styles on my library, including for the logo and the body copy, although I do not have a style for the body copy. So I will be making a body copy for the style guide. So right here I have some body copy in the product details. And as you can see, we have medium 12. Let me see if I think the medium is good. I'm gonna go ahead and leave that at that. I think goes with the title. As you can see, I have a couple of styles here for titles, and I will make this a new style for the body copy. Let's call it. Now looking back at the checklist, I do not have any text links or any images. I may have images at the moment. I will have images in mockups. For this particular video, I will focus on. Let me look at heading, hierarchy, and usage. Of course, one of the most important aspects of typography. We're describing what the content is and signaling to the user where they are in, especially when they're looking at clothing. So I've got some headings that are according to the content product details. We're describing the product details, which is in this case the shirt, the vintage call t-shirt. Let me look at the home page. I'm trying to look for some inconsistencies. Let me look at this one, recommendations. I'm going to go ahead and fix this one. I'm going to actually create a style that is not has so much decorative. I want to avoid decorations, especially with headings. Let me see, semi-bold, change this 16. I'm going to go ahead and close that in, and maybe I'm going to center that so it remains centered as well as the logo up here, so it looks a lot more organized and elegant. And I'm going to go ahead and add in, this has a style. I'm going to call that subtitle size 16, yes. So I want to look at meaningful sequence, which is basically ensuring that the navigation is in order and logical as well as intuitive. And we'll also look at some maybe more consistency down here with the navigation. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to call out the sequence of events and the user flow to kind of get an idea of the main sequence of how this app works. You're at the home page. I gave the user a couple of options. The user could go to the hamburger menu, which will take them to this overlay right here. We've got some categories for men and women. I've also had a search bar so the user can go through that route. There's a filter icon right here, which I believe I will not be needing for this case, but that more on that later. And we have, of course, the feature buttons, which are going to lead the user to some other pages. This is the product details page. This is after the user has selected an item, either in the search bar or looked on the recommendations. If the user clicks on one of these products, for instance, we call t-shirt, this is what we get. The user can then go ahead and read on this information, and we've reached kind of a dead end. Since there's nothing else to go further, the user can click the back arrow, which will go back here. And eventually, if the user wants to go check out the home page, go back to the main homepage, click on this icon, try the virtual product recognition, which is this page here. Again, I included some back arrows to let the user exit or try the try on button, which is another feature for this application. And this is what we get. And last but not least, if the user has an item on the product listing page or on the product details page, I should say, they have the option to find it in the store, and this is what we get right here. So overall, I think the main sequence is meaningful and it is stronger than it was before. So I'm gonna go ahead and now let's look at the checklist. So consistent navigation. If navigation is repeated across multiple pages, it must be represented in a consistent manner. So I'm gonna go ahead and focus on consistent navigation. So as you can see, I was looking around through some navigation instances, and I found these arrows up here which are not positioned correctly. So let's make them more consistent by adjusting their position on the layout. So I've established a position of 24x and 24y on the layout. By making these changes, I'm showing that I'm letting users know where they are and making the software feel more simpler and faster. My company is a high-end clothing department shop, so I want the elegant aspect to stand out and fit in. So, but I'm also focusing on adding more consistency now. For uniformity, I'll create a box around all icons for better touch targets, and that is a good segue to touch targets, which is coming up later in the video. So I am planning on replacing icons with boxes, and I'll see that in the component section. Looking at the checklist, let's see, we have navigation items and indicators. So all navigation elements need a unique state for default, hover, active, and focus. I'm going to go ahead and add one of these to one of my buttons in the features. So right here, I'm on the component section, and I'm going to go ahead and add an instance, not an instance. I'm going to go ahead and add a variant to this button here. I'm going to move these down so I can have more room to work with. Work on this variant here. The scan item button. I'm going to go ahead and make this a tapped. Alright, so I've made a state that is tapped for this particular variant, so I'm going to go ahead and rename it to tap state. So moving on to links and buttons. Now I do not have any links per se on my file here, but I'm gonna go ahead and look at the button. So let's see link and button text, which is right here. So just as they point out, I want actionable text, I could come up with something better for some of the feature buttons, which I looked at earlier. So I'm gonna go ahead and head over there now. So I'm at the home page, and here are the feature buttons, and I was looking about changing these text boxes here. This one is saying scan item, and this one says try on an item. Scan an item doesn't sound so bad to me, but there were other options that I was thinking about, and some of them included scan and discover. I was also thinking of other options such as scan product, or the other one, which I just thought of, could be scan and shop, which could be a much better approach to making more transactions and producing more transactions for the store, the company printers. So I could potentially go with scan and shop item. So I've got this button, which I'm going back to, which is in the product details pop-up. And instead of saying view details, I want to optimize this more to say view item details. So I'm going to go to the component section and do that. All right, so let's look at target size. So touch targets. The size of the target doubling for clickable items is at least 24 by 24 pixels. So I'm going to go ahead and get the touch targets tool right here, and let's go ahead and try out some touch targets. So here I found another example. We have both the AA good to go, but I want to go ahead and improve on the AAA for these back arrows icons. So target size and touch targets are important for this app because it focuses on the issue of how easy buttons are to tap. So I have several buttons and icons in this app that I plan on having. So good target size makes sure it's a smooth and comfortable experience for the user. It's easy to tell without mistakes. That's what I'm going to look for, and I want my users to be happy, not angry with mistakes that I make with target size. So the last thing I'm going to look at is forms and controls. So I have very minimal forms in this design. I do not have, let's say, the typical forms, but search bar is the main one here. So I included a search bar icon to clearly signify the search bar. So I'm going to go ahead and look at that. So as I said before, I included a search icon to clearly signify that this is a search bar and an input field. I think the proximity is good, and I believe that it will look better once the mockup comes together. I do, however, want to go ahead and add an error message for this search bar. So I went through the entire checklist and looked at the checkboxes that I felt were necessary for this audit. Thank you for listening and watching.